Huh? I've done a lot this week, but I don't know. I guess I missed my that coffee you were bringing. What was it? Are we ready? Okay. Okay, we're gonna start.
And one dog.
All right. Anamege, everyone, welcome. This is the part 2 of what is the Midewiwin. Okay. I want to thank Travis Wilmer for a lot of the work he did on the PowerPoint. I really appreciate that. It just really helps, I think, look at. So I want to thank him for that. So we're going to review very quickly what happened in the first part. Was everybody here for last week's? Okay. You weren't here, Johnny. And yeah, there's some that weren't here. Okay. Okay, the word Midewiwin refers to the sound of the water drum. That's when beating the water drum. The sound from the beating goes down into the water. The drum is filled, not quite filled with water, and resonates into the water and gives a completely different sound. And that is what it refers to. So it's a really nice sound. And this is a philosophy. Talks about attaining a long and healthy life. Okay. And I guess a lot of people wonder about that. You know, how can I attain a long and healthy life? How can I do that, you know, with so many unknowns in life? Okay. So the Midewiwin is specifically belongs to the Anishinaabe people. And these are all the people of the Anishinaabe. Of course, the Chippewa, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi are known as the Three Fires. And then there's to the northeast on the Canadian side, north of Lake Erie, you have your Mississauga, your Nez-Perce, and your Algonquin. And they all speak the same language. They follow the ways of the Midewiwin. So all one people historically at one time when we resided on the North Atlantic. Okay. When people don't really know anything about the Midewiwin, but they've heard a little bit about it, some think it's legend, myth, that, you know, is it still alive? Is there still really a society called that? Okay. And this is the oral legend, the basic oral legend of the old people. Old Pine Showman from Cross Village, Odawa, He told me this story. Yeah, Pine Showman, yeah. So along with the giving of the Midewiwin, they're also the one that incorporated these spirits, incorporated the Dododemog, the clan system, to organize the people, to get them organized, to strengthen them, to give them more purpose. I had a little contact with Eddie Bettenbenet over the past years. He passed away here a couple years ago, and he's from Lac de Flambeau, or they call it LCO, most people. It's in Wisconsin. It's on the Great Lakes, Lake Superior on the South Shore, and they're all Made there. Eddie Benton was probably one of the most respected elders there of the Made, having attained the 8th degree. And he's the one that really, I don't know, he was a lifelong learner, and also he walked his talk. He wanted to know more and more. He sought out a lot of elders up in Canada to learn more. But he was able to, he was called to an archaeological dig in upstate New York. And they had, within that dig, they found a copper plate. Actually so it must have been about 4 by 3 or 4 by 8. When he said it wasn't uniform, but there was a lot of etching on it, and they called him to look at this because of the inscriptions on it. And he described it was a man being initiated into the 4th degree bear lodge. And the bear, if you remember, is the symbol of the 4th degree. And through radiocarbon, they figured it's between 35 to 29,000 BC. That's before our current age. Okay, so information about what the Magus gave about the clans, the families. Okay. This is an organizational chart. So in ancient times, there were 8. And with the resurgence of the Made, in the 20th century, last century, 19th century, when things are calming down more with our people, especially in the 50s and 60s, especially after the 1978 Freedom of Religion Act. People started practicing more open, so a lot more people started attending. Elders started coming out and teaching more, and so yeah, these are some of the things that happen within the organizational chart that they have. So okay, and so everybody takes part in them a day. You gotta, 8, 9 years old on up, they encourage. So you have parents who belong to it, usually their children belong to it, and everybody has relatives or family within them. It is the main teaching society of the Great Lakes. Okay, it is the main teaching society. Unlike our people here who are Plains Ojibwe, we have a lot more ceremony, different things that are outside of the Mide. These things, societies, women and men, were given to us when we collaborated with the Assiniboine and the Dakota, or the Assiniboine, the Nakota, the Cree, some of the others that were part of the Confederacy, like the Ani, the Grovant, a little bit with the Salish during those trading days, that big Confederacy. So when I went through my initiations, they asked me, wanted to know where I was from, and they asked me, and they says, do you take part in the Sundance? A lot of the Great Lakes people haven't been out this way, and so when they think of the Sundance, they think of the Lakota or Dakota Sundance. But actually our Sundance or Thirsty Dance came from the Cree. It was given to us in the Cree in 1824. It's given to us. Okay. And these are the levels or degree of learning you go through. Okay. We'll talk more a little bit in depth about that, what goes on with these teachings. Yeah, so we're at part 2. Okay. I think I'm awake now. Okay. What are the teachings or learning styles of the Mide? It's a systematic, prolonged teaching and practice of man's cohabitation with the natural environment between teacher and pupils. Okay. So I've heard people say that the Anishinaabe, they're the perfect woodlands people. We are the woodland people. We know everything about our environment. We know every stick, we know every plant, we know about every tree, you know, everything. And this is because of the Mide. Okay, so I'm still struggling with my second oldest son. He's a woodcutter, he sells wood, and he still struggles between what is ash and what is elm, and all of that. So he gets confused, unless it's all gnarly. Does he definitely know? But the shapes of the leaves and all that stuff, you know, are quite different. The learning approach is humanistic, because everybody's a little bit different. Sometimes the groups are small. It's subjective, it's aesthetic, and transitional. Does anybody understand what those 4 words mean? So man's cognitive and spiritual connections have a direct tie with their reason and purpose. Okay. How men think, how women think, how they look at things, how they perceive things. They're all tied together spiritually. Men and women have a hard time understanding the connection cognitively and spiritually in themselves and making sense of that. Learning has no end. Man's environment and natural environment are constantly changing. This is important. So because of this natural process, our knowledge and understanding of it must be too. This has to do with us, our survival on the planet. All the changes that have happened good and bad. Not only has happened to us, but it's happened to the natural surroundings. Some of you weren't here during the creation stories when the creator told the first man, Anishinaabe, and his first companion, Ma-Ingan. Ma-Ingan, the wolf, was the first companion of man. It was not a woman, you know. So when I had a talk with a priest one time about that, he says, this sounds so much better. Okay. Anyway, mine gun represented the natural environment. Okay, it's so the creator told him whatever happens to Ma-Ingan will also happen to you, good or bad. So whatever happens to one will happen to the other. This has to do with that. Things change. Learning and understanding must allow the concepts of evolution and change. Knowledge is like water. It can change its appearance, constantly recycle itself, and it's constant and perpetual in its motion. Okay, that's how knowledge is. And that's how our learning must be. That's how our understanding of knowledge must be. The integration of knowledge into the student's world, supposed to be, is paramount to the teacher. So how you integrate knowledge, how do you integrate what you're teaching? How do you do that? It's just not the process, it's how the student integrates this knowledge, how he perceives it. The student's understanding of the world must be directed towards their everyday existence and experience. So that's how they integrate it. Okay. Their environment, where they live. When we don't have a good understanding of our environment or our experiences with it, it creates chaos and confusion. Yeah. These are the teaching and learning styles of the Mide. Learning that the natural world should be viewed as a living organism. Okay, this is something that's quite different from the non-native view. Okay, this is what separates their spirituality and our spirituality. Even though in their Bible that says that God created all things, but also he created man, you know, there seems to be that the species of man is separated from his environment, and therefore it's only about himself. So which we don't view that as such. We feel as we're a part of all the living things, even though we're created towards the last. Everything as us is living and has a spirit. Okay. The natural world is just another extension of self. Self-awareness within the cycle of life is a result of understanding your experience in time and space. So, in time and place refers to our understanding of things is based on our experience and also our age. You think differently than when you're a teenager, than as adult. Thank God. Thank goodness. I don't know if I want to relive my teenage life. Okay. She's fighting to hold it back. I know she is. So, you know, you look at adults and you look at the way teenagers. I read an article today and I thought was quite interesting about this man. Of course, he's an adult, mature adult now, and he said, as a teenager, I made a point of never listening to my parents, never doing what they asked me. I always did the opposite. And I thought, wow, what a struggle, you know, and what a crazy life he must have had if he survived it, that he survived it. And we actually have a society amongst the Plains of Ojibwe that we call the Windigo Khan. The Windigo Khan refers to those who go backwards. Huh? Huh? Yeah, clowns. Yeah, clowns. Yeah. So when they have their dance and their ceremony and they belong to that society, when they actually perform or they act out, the whole purpose of what they're doing is to teach you what not to do. And I'll actually tell you some stories about some of them during storytelling. So, you know, that's a very popular society in Canada and at Turtle Mountain. There's quite a few that belong to it. And I can talk more about that. And so later on, so that's their purpose. And that's something I believe we got from the Assiniboine. They have their Heoka society, which are clown society. So yeah. Learning is holistic because of everything is a living organism is related to, and therefore it's all tied in together. All things are related and intertwined through our imprint on nature. And if you really think about it, think about the imprint man has made on the natural world since the beginning. And up to today. I mean, it's mind-boggling if you think about it, where now, you know, we're destroying the natural world, basically. You know, it's been proven that we're going down this path that we're actually destroying our home, our habitat. But I also believe, as a lot of elders, that the natural world has the ability to heal itself and has the strength to come back. So, yeah. Individuals learn an understanding through involvement, through non-participation. Our level of learning, somebody can tell you about something and you understand, but your real understanding of it comes when you actually participate. Because your whole body, all your senses, all your emotions, they're all involved. It's it becomes somewhat, you awaken that real knowledge, or you choose not to. This is the autonomy of man. This is man can actually participate in what they learn, or they can stand to the side and participate on something else. Some people get involved with the Sweat Lodge and some people don't. They're interested, but for some reason or another, men and women, they kind of hold back. You know, some want to just kind of jump right in. It reminds me of my two great grandsons. They're twins. One, when he sees an activity outside the home with other kids, he will just involuntarily just go right in and participate and just totally get immersed in it. Where the other one, he holds back. He'll hold back because he's kind of, I don't know, kind of fearful. He needs to have a little encouragement to help to get involved. Okay, so, and then he enjoys it. So man becomes what he sees, smells, touch, tastes, feels, and creates, or participates in. So some people say the Anishinaabe means spontaneous, the spontaneous person. So being spontaneous means what? Yeah, just kind of jumping right in, just doing it, right? Just, you know, whatever it is, you're not going to participate, you know, and hopefully it's good. You know, hopefully it's good, you know, and so it's based on what you see, smell, everything, spontaneous. We are very much that. We're spontaneous people. That's why we learn from our mistakes too. People will learn from their mistakes, and because they're spontaneous, and this is a way of learning too. All humans by nature try to organize their environment to make sense of it, yet life is fluid and emergent. The Midewiwin teaches men and women how to be adaptive, creative, and to stay within life cycle. And that's the secret of our survival as people. Without these concepts, this kind of way of thinking, I don't think our people would have survived the last so-called war on our people here 100 years ago, if not more, the last 500 years. Yeah, the coming of the colonizers, we wouldn't have survived that. Okay. So what general knowledge is taught? Okay, so the level one, you need the teaching of self. The 7 grandfather teachings. It's paramount. It's like food and water. It's like sunshine. So what do you do with kids that have been traumatized and still have some of that haven't healed, you know? It becomes really hard for the elders to teach these children about love, about kindness, about empathy. When you see children actually hurting cats or dogs or animals in general, or they're hurting each other or other children, or mother might have planted a garden of roses and there they are, just, you know, instead of just going up to it, you know. How do you teach something about that, about your environment? So your level one is probably your most important one, even for adults, especially in recovery or some kind of addiction. So level one sometimes is the longest and hardest to before you can get initiated into your level one. And this was a big job. $120 some years ago, especially when our people started, when the buffalo were gone, people were put on the reservations. The role of the woman somewhat was the same, to take care of family, to teach children, to nurture. But the man's role as a hunter vastly disappeared. You know, destruction of his ego, the destruction of his self followed for many generations. And this is what people turn to. That kind of destruction for the women, I think, happened when they were also traumatized. A disrespect towards women, an attack on the woman's self or her body, or looked on as less, that kind of thing. And for the elders, it was, their role was diminished or completely stripped from them when there was no more children in the home. They were taken off the boarding school. Or whatever they knew or accumulated in knowledge for their teachings, there was nobody else to teach. They no longer had a role. So I think in that time, ginger ale. So the teaching itself is probably without that student initiating into that first degree as an adult, sometimes the hardest for teachers, because you got to talk about yourself, talk about your trauma. And they use the natural world as an example. You know, something, if this plant is constantly being beaten or tormented and stuff, its will to live it'll eventually die. But some plants, they look like they're dying, but with some nurturing and love and continual attention, they'll thrive again. So that's the kind of things. Okay. The teaching of the order of things. I have two daughters, and that was really difficult. So one was the youngest, and the other was almost the oldest one. She got learned her responsibility, but the youngest always wanted to have the same equalness as the older one. But she didn't have, she just wanted that. She wanted to bypass the experience. She just wanted the reward. It was hard for her to understand that. So, and there's an order of things. If you notice, in the woods, some trees grow taller than others, and sometimes some don't grow as tall. They're stunted, so to speak. And why is that? You know, the order of things. So, what might be the order of things in the natural world? You don't know? I surprised you, I'm sorry. Anybody? Yeah, what is in the natural world, what would be the first order of things? Yeah, natural world.
That bigger trees that are overcrowded.
Okay, if we're talking about trees, yeah. Yeah, That's somewhat like that. Huh? Yeah, against the other elements, the winds and the fires and lack of moisture or too much moisture. How things can affect other living things. So there's a lot of different teachings in the order things. First of all, things are related. They're all intertwined. Okay. And if all things are related and intertwined, they communicate with each other. They need their space because of who they are, what they are. They require this, so they require that. So if you look at an environment like the Amazon, everything is so closely without any kind of input, so closely bunched together. But then they have to fight for survival too. And so everything needs its element on top of the world. But then you have things that thrive in the dark too, like the bottoms of water that have less light. You know, how do they thrive? Okay. It depends on their order of, like, for fish, are they apex? What feeds on the other because they have less things. But, and there's other orders of things like the stones, the rocks that are the basic building material and all that thing. Okay. And that ties into the teaching of life forms, plants, things that crawl like grass, rhizomes, and different things. Things learn about that and when their purpose, how they live, how they are needed for other things. We were talking that today when we were going to build this sweat, how the ground here in this part of the country is basically all clay base. It's very sparse with anything that grows, and the kind of shrubs that were here. I don't think there was much for buffalo grass that grew here originally, where buffalo grass still grows in part of the Dakotas and in Nebraska and Kansas, and some of their parks. If left alone, it becomes very grows really tight together, and it grows really high that you could actually get lost in it. A human man, you can't see above it. You have to actually stand up on the back of a horse to see anything. So that was buffalo grass, because buffalo would go in and just mow down the grass, knock it down. Different things. And so talk about survival and not overcoming the environment, not destroying the environment, but how to live with the environment. Teachings of the roles of other life forms. Okay, what could that be? Of other life forms. Things that we normally figure don't have a life, have a spirit. Huh? What are other? Why is there other life forms? What can be an other life form? Bees? Crawlers, snakes? How about rocks? Rocks? People don't think of rocks as having any kind of a life form because of their composition. I've read articles where science believes that life started not on this planet, but started in a rock that fell upon the earth, and that it had some kind of I don't know, microbial life form, something like that. Can that be true? Or life forms like on that are out of this world, like on the moon? Or what our perception is, I mean, why isn't there any kind of life that we recognize as life on Mars? Well, on the surface, now we know that underneath the surface, there's still frozen lakes, solidified lakes and water that are changed their life forms into ice. So when we talk about nature's, an element can become really solidified through through fossilization, pressure, taking away the air and in place putting pressure on it. It changes its life forms. Rocks are made that way. They found mammoths where they've actually found frozen grass in its mouth and it's still undigested grass matter in its stomach through a quick freeze. So we know that the changing of water changes normal life forms into becoming what? It's in a suspended state. But when it becomes back into a normal state, it might die or it might thrive again. So that's the kind of life forms I'm talking about. When you impact environment through wind, water, earth, and fire, the impact of those elements. They're still life forms, but they're in a different state. So what do we learn from these different states? And different things like teachings of the creation of man, we've learned about that. There's more to it. Life and afterlife. The life we know and the afterlife, not just for humans, but other life forms. And can they still be useful? Now, a common thing that the Anishinaabe do and some of the other tribes is when we identify a medicine and we need to use that medicine because the little muskrat tells us it's going to be a hard winter. You better go out and get some medicine. Or something like that. Okay, I'll get back to serious. So you just wantonly pull that plant up or cut it off or, and start doing something with it, preparing to use it or going to store it away for time you need it. No, our people teach how to sing to it. Singing is the common form of a neutral form of communication. As the wind blows through nature, you can see the impact on it, but you can't see it. But it responds to things. People who have green thumbs like to plant flowers and gardens and stuff like that. Your touch, the energy you give off by your touch or your nearness, plants respond. A lot of people think, oh, that's BS, but it's true. It's really true. So the more attention you give it, the more kindness you give it, it responds. And you can actually communicate with them and say what you're going to do. And they will respond because they know that part of their purpose in life is empathy and responding to a need. And if you apply that to yourself, that's the purpose of plants or life forms are that way too. We have a purpose. We have, if there's a need, if I can help, you know, and people a lot of times are willing to even sacrifice themselves out of the immediate need for others because of love. And where's that love come from? You know, we don't understand it fully, but we give ultimately sometimes. So we sing to the plant. And when we go to it, we harvest it in the way is the most life-threatening, like the gathering of sweetgrass, swingas. We always tell people, don't pull that root out, you know, don't, because it's not the root that we need. You know, you cut it with a scissor or you use a knife, harvest it that way. And then when it's fresh, you never braid it when it's fresh. You have to let it wait a few days to let it wilt. Plant will wilt, it soften up. It'll kind of lay there and kind of a soft way. Where if you braid it up because it's crisp, it'll break and crack when it dies. But if you don't let it wilt, it's soft and pliable and usable. And then when you go to use it, like a medicine, you talk to it again, you sing to it. And you tell it, this is your purpose now. And so life and afterlife refer to, so we go through great length as human beings. When somebody passes away, we celebrate their life. We go through, we give them the best funeral that we can afford, or we have memorials, we have wakes, and we put the pictures out about their life and celebrating their life and their contribution. And then we make great preparation for when they go on and everything. So the body's cleansed and everything. And so when you're done using medicine, for example, you've made a tea with it, served its purpose. We encourage people not to just throw it in the garbage, you know, but take it outside and put it back on the ground, you know, throw a little tobacco on it and thank it, you know, show them that respect. The same way with animals. People, when they harvest deer, the old teachings are that you take a chunk of that deer meat and tie a cloth, some tobacco, and you put it in a tree and you ask that spirit to live again, or right after the kill, so to speak. Okay. So that the spirit of it will relive. So that's a lot of the teachings about life and afterlife, and there's more. This is just general stuff. Teaching of basic natural elements, air, earth, fire, and water. So some of that we've already talked about. Teachings of the Anishinaabe, prophecies and migration. That was up to the Mide. They still teach that. Teachings of the gifts of the seven grandfathers. So, okay. This is more Pacific knowledge that's taught. It goes along with all the other things, but it's more Pacific. That middle one, teaching of moderation and balance. If you do not have balance in your life, if you do not have moderation in life, you are out of balance. You do not still have full capacity uh, of having a good experience with what you know. Sometimes that knowledge of your experience, whether it's bad, it's still out of control. You do not have it controlled yet. Sometimes it takes time. All right. Teachings of knowing. Right there in the middle. I didn't necessarily, I was kind of hurrying. I didn't put these in order. But teaching of knowing. Knowing that we know what we do know about ourselves. Because I've walked far enough over the last few months and I'm in control of myself. And how can I know I'm in control of my body? And I know that having this kind of thinking, this kind of behavior will result in this, you know. So if I have this kind of thinking and this kind of behavior will result in this, you know, just, you know, identifying key things, red flags, identifying red flags. When I got sober and clean years ago, I realized, and I'd heard you can't hang around with your old friends again, at least for a while, because, you know, you get talked into things. And or, you know, you go along with them because you want to be part of their crowd. And so, you know, you fall off the wagon and you return into your behavior, but you have to start again, you know. But after you get to this point of knowing and living a balanced life, you can see your friends again. You can hang around with them for a while, but if it's what they do, that's their life. But this is what I do, you know. But, you know, and they start saying, you know, I'm glad you made it. I'm glad you made it. I wish I can get there. I want to be there one day, you know. Things start happening like that. Teaching the responsibilities of knowledge. That's a big one. There's all kinds of knowledge and different levels of knowledge. And the more you know, and the more you know how to do things, there's a responsibility to it. But it also comes with a caveat. Your life is no longer personal. It doesn't become your own. Your life is no longer your own. That you see your life, how you can affect other people in a good way. So people start coming to you. You're drawn to people to try to help them. You become more empathetic. You gain this responsibility. And, you know, what do you do with it? You start realizing, hey, you know, seems like I have some purpose now. Things like that. People become caregivers. You know, all of a sudden maybe I'll go into social work, or I'll go into, you know, nursing or something like that. You're drawn into that. When people start seeing that you have moderation and balance, then people start asking, well, how did you get to that point? You know, boy, my life is, sometimes it's a roller coaster and it's so chaotic, but then there's times where things level out. You know, how can I keep things leveled out? You know, like that.
Oh, and that, I was always drawn my brother's place and like, oh, I think therapy is. And I told him this, for me personally, there was a time at healing when I would go out there, because it was so quiet and it was so beautiful. It was just so clean and just the smell of the trees and grass, that was pretty. And I would go back there and I would just sit out on this back. But my place is a hill and my crazy world and my computer and homeland and my home life wasn't bad. We acquired our grandson 16 years ago as a movie. He's the citizens of the doctor, but I was thrown into one of the ages of two. So, that was a big change too. And my husband knew it was important for me to go back there and do some of these things. But finding the balance for your safety, mental well-being, your self, the diseases away, and the disability. And it taught me that when I went back to work, that was more of an admission to the beginning. It just, it's so important to know. And even my home is like my sanctuary. I don't invite a lot of people out to our house because it's my safe place. It's where I find the calmness. Even where I'm out, yes, you can see the workout. And I go sit out by a wood pile for a long time. It's early in the morning because I love the snow. And it just brings calmness.
Awesome. Awesome. Like which? Teachings of knowing. This is what I'm talking about, knowing. You know what brings you calm, brings you peace, and also in the natural world too, that having peace and calmness is essential for growth, essential for enlightenment. Okay, teachings of energies and movement. Okay. Is there a question? Huh? What? No, we'll stay on that. Okay. What do I mean by energies and movement? So in physics, it requires energy to have movement. Has to do with momentum, part of the equation, the reason for movement, but also it requires a certain amount of energies, but also it, some of it's deliberate and undeliberate, can be viewed as undeliberate. Okay. Man figured that out a long time ago with the movement of water. They could build dams and create energy as a result from that movement. Okay. Forces. So most natural things in the world have those two elements. They have an energy, and their movement is part of growth. Okay, human beings have very much capitalized on these ideals about energies and movement, and we can see that in our world today. Through technology, through mechanics, and things like that. So are people capable of doing that without without mechanics, without technology, just through their energy, can they generate enough energy to create movement? Yeah, but on another thing that isn't like them. That is of the natural world, but is separate from you. Okay. My son, my second oldest son, when he was pretty young, I would say probably about 5, 6 years old, 4 or 5. He wasn't in school yet. I was looking for him one morning and I went to the back and we had played baseball in the backyard. We weren't living where we are now. Anyway, so it was more open and flat. Grass was there. And so I heard him laughing and he was, there was the baseball like that and he would throw it. And he said, come here. And the ball actually rolled back to him. And so I was watching him like that. And then he would go like that. The ball would spin and go around in a little circle. So I just let him be. I didn't bother him, but I watched him for a while. And then I went back in the house and I asked him what he was doing and he said, I was just playing ball. I asked him, I said, I seen you playing ball. I said, how were you able to do that? I said, I don't know, Dad. Move that ball. I don't know, Dad. But he's lost that ability now. So sometimes you have to have things help you, show you a higher knowledge or how to draw on energy differently to create movement. Communication with the natural and supernatural. As Native people, we've learned 3 things. How to pray, how to dance, how to sing. They're all communication. Okay? They're all communication for the natural world and the supernatural world. The dancing and singing, or So I think in the beginning when we talked to the natural world, we understood the response of that, or there was a response. And so, you know, people still do that through dreams. They have communication where the supernatural world will actually talk to you. In the month of July, families sometimes send their young teenage or preteen males out to fast. So they have that supernatural intervention, hopefully. Of course, some do and some don't. It depends. And of course, you're not allowed to eat or drink water most of the time in the initial phases, the 4-day phases. And the reason behind that is so you actually suffer yourself. Okay, that's the reason for it. So when one part of nature suffers, the other part kind of is drawn to that suffering. Why is that thing or suffering? Okay, they're drawn to that, the crying, the hurt. You know, if you're hurting or something, Danny, when you're hurting or suffering, I'm sure your wife knows that and can see it on you, and she attends you, or she wants to help, you know, and vice versa, of course. So that's the reason that happens in the fasting. That's the reason the sweat lodge. There has to be some kind of suffering going on. Either if it's self-induced, for us to get the attention of the supernatural, or that. Whether it's induced or it has some kind of motivation behind it. Okay. And so usually there's a reason if you want to communicate with the supernatural or the natural world, there has to be a reason. Okay. Natural and supernatural gifts used and responsibility. People attain these gifts through various means, and sometimes they get them for nothing. I know different people from different clans who attain gifts because it's very strong in their bloodline. A son will inherit, or a daughter will inherit that gift, or this, or it goes down like that. It's right there. They don't really have to do nothing. It just happens. And so it could be a natural gift. A natural gift is that all people are given gifts. What do you think your gift is? Huh? Listening and good with plants. Okay. Empathy. Yeah, you're really, some people are more empathetic than others. Some people have to learn to be empathetic. What can be another gift? Natural gift. Luella, what's your natural gift? Huh?
No idea.
Sure. What is one of Luella's natural gifts? Okay.
I don't see it in myself.
Every time I see you, you have to talk.
I think, yeah, Luella's very kind, welcoming. Yeah,
I do like it.
yeah. Be in a position where you can help too. So you're on a natural path to doing what the Creator wants you to do. Okay, what do you think is a natural gift, Richard, you might have? What? Courage. Okay. Have you always, how about you, Danny? Mechanically inclined. Awesome. Okay. What think your gift is? Have you always been so happy? Yeah. Well, that's, you know, for people to be happy all the time, even though what's going on, I think that's amazing. Do you? Awesome. Singing is good. How about Travis? Do you have a gift? Getting things done. Awesome. You're not a procrastinator. I had to learn not to be. Originally I was, but I had to learn not to be. The benefit of not being. So looking at the past and making sense, trying to make sense of it.
That's good.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to listen to families and friends that have these people, they're involved and all that. Because sometimes they just want to resolution at this point, result is full. But just to be able to talk about that, being that. I don't know what's together that all. Somebody else to call me.
I think my sister, from what I have known her, she's a natural caregiver. She just has a big heart, and she always wants to address your needs or be helpful in any way she can, which is awesome, you know. So I think everybody is endowed with some kind of a natural gift, some more than others. I like to do things with my hands. I'm artistic. I can look at something and I can see what it's capable of becoming, you know, either by itself or adding something to enhance it or make it better. So I'm very, I like doing that. As far as supernatural gifts, if gifts are given to you supernaturally, it is in line with your natural gifts, usually, as you are. Because people have, for the most part, not always, but people have them for the most part, people, when they acknowledge their natural gifts and they actually start mastering their natural gifts, either at an early age or when they get older, you gain the ability of seeing farther, that you can see the reason for these natural gifts and the benefit of it to other people. And sometimes the spirit will enhance that to a certain degree. And so, thinking about lineal terms, which is usually like that vertical line there, is knowing that lineal can also be bent and stay lineal. You can make a right angle, but you know, depending how it moves, it looks lineal. Things like that. So ideas and illumination can happen through supernatural, or sometimes illumination happens, but usually it's through supernatural means. And there's a reason for those supernatural means. So in the stories that I've told so far about either children or adults that gain supernatural gifts, they have a responsibility, and they're to use them in accordance usually with helping others, usually. Okay. So that is where a lot of times people mess up. And sometimes the gifts are taken away, or the gift eats you up and inflicts you, and you can die. So Kowalson is the perfect story about that. So there we still have, in all this stuff, we still have to maintain empathy and respect, moderation, and look at the bigger picture, how it might impact us or something. Some people who are given something wish they never had it. I knew a person that was able to foretell things in the future. And initially they thought it was so cool that they could see what was going to happen, but then they hated it. But the future is not written yet because there's so many variables that can happen, good and bad. So we don't know. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I don't know. What are the roles of the Midewiwin members in their community today? They are regular people promoting wellness through healthy behavior and lifestyle. Be involved in the community with the community for positive reform. They seek to destroy a healthy community. So we're the counterbalance. We're the positive counterbalance. Being involved with their culture that seeks to rebuild, to build strength and confidence in the youth. Teaching proactive concepts that encourage a healthy respect for for the natural environment. Being active in social justice issues that seek to reverse the racist ideals and actions of the past and the present larger society. Yeah, we still have that. Last night at the storytelling, one of the attendees brought up the idea that she heard on the radio that they were, a radio commentator had made a suggestion that, was it the migrants? That the homeless should all be rounded up and put on, and there should be a reservation made for them, just like the natives. You know, on so many levels, that's wrong to say. You know, that's, so yeah. Respect for all life by having a positive attitude toward the Creator. No matter how much of a bad day we have or what happens to us, you know, when we wake up the next day, it's a new day, it's a fresh start. We thank the Creator. We go on. That kind of attitude, you know. So these are the roles of Midewiwin. This is the result of it. It's creating positive change, reform, you know, being able to reset life and in a good way. We have that ability just by being good people, you know, empathetic people. Okay. What relevance does a 5,100 to 5,700-year-old society like the Midewiwin have for this current generation? I've heard that. Young people say that. When I used to teach in the schools, they says, what's the point? This is like something from a long time ago. What, you know, why do I have to learn this? You know, how do we strike a chord with the younger generation? Individual spirituality is of this world, not of another world. It's the present life we live now when we talk about it. Of this life, not another life. Okay? Spirituality isn't about the afterlife. We can talk about the Creator and the spirits out there, but it's this life we're living right now. That's what counts. That's how we need to perceive it. You know, it's not something that's happening tomorrow, it's something that's happening right now. And we have the capability of even changing that direction. To have spiritual balance is to be in touch with the forces and energies of life. Okay. Especially people who are experiencing chaos and turmoil and trauma in their life almost on a daily basis. Or when this person comes into your life or knocks on your door, you go there, you know, there's chaos and trauma. How do you deal with that? To have spiritual balance is to see the true reality on different levels. Okay. Not so much how it affects you, but why is it affecting this other person this way? How can my energies, my gifts affect this person positively to help create that balance in this person to, you know, to change that? Or if they want it to change, most people do. Misery likes company, not so much. I mean, people, if they're really truthful, that's not true. But they say, well, it is what it is. This is it, you know, this is my life. Okay, to have spiritual balance is to see the true reality on different, okay. Generate respectful ways to look and understand others' knowledge paths. Okay. People have come into my life, you know, I mean, they like to party, they like to, you know, they live a criminal lifestyle. They're troublemakers, or maybe they do things within their life they've rationalized out, and they don't realize that they're hurting others or they're causing chaos. And some will say, well, this is the natural order of things. You know, I'm a rebel. You know, things need to be turned up a few more notches, and things need to be. And so they have their own perspective about life and for what they're doing. Instead of being judgmental, we need just to understand their perspective. You know, and so at least we can meet them on some level. Is trying to meet people on certain levels to try not to be judgmental. But when we encounter people, the people that are different from us, there's judgment right away. You look different from me. You know, you come from a third world country. I come from the USA, the home of the brave, that kind of thing, you know? So my family lives with me. My kids, my dog kids, they all live with me. Well, hey, here in the USA, we kick our kids out when they're 18 years old, boot them out and say, get a job, pay your own rent, buy your own groceries, you know, get a car, get your license, get it in gear, dude. Put it in gear. But these are our children. We love them near to us. They'll move up maybe when they have a relationship, they're in love with somebody else, you know, and they get on their own. So that kind of perspective in this world today is different from another perspective. So we might say, well, you know, oh, what are you doing here in this country? This is how we think. This is what we do, you know. And sometimes by any means possible, when they go off to college, man, we have $1,000 being the wife set aside, and we're redoing that room completely. We're repainting it. You know, we're gonna take that carpet out of there. Yeah, so they don't come back. It's like, you know. Huh? You're gonna, okay. You're gonna actually lift up your whole house and move it to a different block. or a different part of the city and get a whole different address, phone number, zip code. So a lot of times we have to look at their perspective. And they might say, Dad, this is my home. It'll always be my home, Mom. You know? I want to be by you. I thought I wanted to live someplace else, but you know, you're always there, you know? And you've never asked me to pay part of the rent. And why haven't you ever asked me? Well, we're doing okay. I make enough money. I can pay all the bills, but you know, but I can see if there's a need, financial need. Yeah, I would probably go to you and say, you know, can you help me out with food and groceries and paying part of the rent? So this whole thing is about trying to understand others' knowledge paths or perceived knowledge paths. So a lot of times on the reservation, you have whole families living under one roof. And you find that also in the Hispanic families, okay? Or they live within the same neighborhood. They don't move out of the neighborhood because their parents are there or their relatives are there. And that's important. So understanding others' knowledge paths. Develop respectful, fulfilling relationships. Respect can happen between two people from two different worlds if you understand each other. Take the time to know each other. You know, where they're coming from and stuff. You may not agree with it, but if they ask you for advice, well, you can give it. But if they don't, well, you know, having balance is also being practical. Or do you think you've reached practicality? Nope. Why not?
I find it hard because sometimes practical just completely jumps up against like my partner's.
So you want to be more spontaneous.
Yeah.
And practicality.
Experience.
Oh, okay. All right. So you want to be a round peg in a, you don't want to be, you want to be a round peg in a square opening sometime.
I would be a
Ah. Okay. Well, yeah, I get it. I get it. I get that. I guess me too. I don't want to. We all have to make adjustments in our life in order to get by, fulfill our needs. You know, on the reservation, it's wild because a lot of people don't believe in getting driver's license. It's like, why? I know how to drive. I know the rules of the road. You know, why do I have to go to the state and take their test and do their driving? Heck, let them roll with me, you know? So justifying that or insurance. A lot of people think insurance is a big scam until you get in a wreck. Talked to one of my grandsons about that. He's, in the last 6 months, he's on his third car. It might be his last for a while. It's not been his fault. Just people have just totally wiped out his car, hit it and stuff. He was parked on the curb and seeing his girlfriend inside, and some guy came by and lost control and just completely. And the other kid didn't have a driver's license, so like, wow. He hasn't called me lately. So it allows focus and mindfulness, mindful attention to self, objects, and surroundings. This is one of the most important things that tries to be established in the Midewiwin. getting people to focus. To really focus on things. Sometimes, because if there's negative or trauma things in your life, people don't want to think about that. They'd rather be off having a beer, you know, or being with their friends, or at a party, or watching a sports game, or something to get their mind off of it. So unhappy things that happen to us, we don't really like to focus on that. But in order to really change our life for the better, and to find out our purpose in life, we need, the focus has to be there. Because in almost every case of situation of different people I've known, I've encountered, or been part of their life, sometimes that exposure to trauma, bad, or depression, when that is healed, a lot of times that bad can be flipped over and used for good because of that, their person's in-depth experience with that. So sometimes alcoholics become the best counselors in treatment. In fact, I think some places they ask if you've actually had experience with that. So dealing with those kind of things is paramount to interacting with other people, because you develop that empathy. And you know how you reacted to the positive to a situation and surroundings. To have spiritual balance is to allow oneself to have illuminated thought. That's the ultimate. Realize your purpose, or what can become. Okay, this is it. Spiritual balance helps you understand the natural order of the world, our interaction with it, our purpose as humans. Spiritual balance allows you to know respect, show respect. That humility is the base of sustaining the interconnected way of life, perhaps. To love selfishly, and that sharing of knowledge is the key to survival of all life. Okay, and this is, so respecting all the creation is the path of knowledge, understanding, commitment, love, and leads to healthy and long life. Language. So what I've been teaching here, and the teachings, a lot of it, even the stories, it's all about this. Okay. Our culture is not a complicated thing. Our spirituality, there's no deep hidden knowledge. They're just you know, as far as you want to go in your life, the positive way, understanding your environment and your experience, you know, taking the risk and having the courage as our warriors, have that strength and courage and bravery to step farther into the unknown of what is capable, especially when you become more connected with your natural world and the spiritual world. It's trying to go as far as you can, you know, and not be afraid, just to go, you know. It's very pleasing if you have a partner that you have both the same goal. So families encourage their children to take part of that, and they nurtured them. And so I can only imagine what kind of life that our ancestors had in a time when their life wasn't really interrupted by the common things that we have today. People like to keep busy. Their life is busy. It's very common. You have a very busy life. And I think we live in a very kind of a, I don't know, sick society today, myself, because life today encourages us just to be busy, to work hard, and these are the benefits of life, to have that shunyao and have these things. And there's a little bit of truth in that. We need that. But it also, we see where this generation are quitting their jobs. They don't want to work. They've seen the foolishness of their parents. What it come to? They maybe had an unhappy marriage, or you know, there was a lot of fighting over money, things like that. People fight a lot over money. Money's important to them. Things, keeping up with the Joneses. So we see them not. Yeah. And what's really important is being happy. Being happy, sharing that happiness. Ooh, look at the smile on his face. You're fortunate. Yeah. Well, that concludes. Any questions? Oh, yes.
Yes. Maybe.
Go down to the previous one, the previous slide.
Generate respectful ways to look and understand others' knowledge paths.
Yeah.
How do they teach that? So like, I usually have a pretty easy time doing that. But sometimes I don't. Sometimes I struggle with it, especially if that path is so juxtaposed to where I am. So like people who hurt others. I have a hard time being able to look at them without judgment and with respect, because I don't understand their knowledge. I don't understand why they do the things they do. So how do they teach people how to do that?
Watching people, how they live, how people live. Suppose you're a type A kind of personality. Every part of your house is like super clean. It was really important. My brother's wife, every Sunday, I mean, she was raised that way, so she became that way, where the house had to be clean, but it had to be like super clean, you know, and it drove her kids crazy, because she would actually do the inspection. You do an inspection. And so basically those kids, in turn, their rationale was not to be like that. Some of them you know, cleaning's not a big deal, but they don't have a filthy house. But there is one that has become like very slobby. Okay. Now you can drive around the neighborhoods and see people whose house and yards are very kept, and you think, well, you must be a reflection of what's going on inside, you know. And I've been inside hoarders' homes. And but then you all live together, and how do people get along? How do people get along? They're in those kind of outward differences. How do they justify their life, you know, to live like that? Basically, we're told that as long as you don't physically hurt somebody, or your intention or your behavior is to harm somebody, then you're okay. Now, people will drink by themselves, and but yet they get up every morning and go to work, and they provide for their families. But you know, still some way they're harming their kids, because, society allows that to pass. So the framework when the Ododams came, the autonomy of people was said that as you can live a life by yourself, as long as you don't live that life to hurt other people or hurt yourself. And so, well, yeah, that's self-explainable if you're going around hurting people, but how are you hurting yourself? Are we all supposed to pull on that rope together? Can some people get away with not putting everybody pulling together? Or is there always one or two who make off like they're doing that, but in reality, they know, I'm not gonna kill myself over this. Yeah. We're probably gone over the time limit, huh?
Yeah,
Oh, God.
a little bit.
So, try to understand who they are and where they come from. Take some time with them and tell them, I would love to have you as a friend. Maybe we have things in common. And perhaps if you, go and have coffee and say, well, what's your story? I'll tell you my story. If you reciprocate, I'll tell you that kind of thing. Sometimes you have to go outside of your space, your comfort zone.
That makes sense.
Does that?
Yeah.
Is it helpful? Sure.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everybody. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm not going to speak all weekend, all the rest of the week. Miigwech.
Thank you.